Welcome to the Ultimate DP-800 Exam Masterclass. I've earned 30 plus certifications, and I'm here to guide you to success on your exam. This PDF in the description is your shortcut. Use these strategies wisely and crack your exam in one go. Revise this PDF 2 to 3 times, and you'll feel the difference in your confidence. Let's jump straight into the most important questions for your success. Question 1. You need to enable similarity search to provide the analysts with the ability to retrieve the most relevant health summary reports. The solution must minimize latency. What should you include in the solution? A. A computed column that manually compares vector values. B. A standard now clustered index on the embeddings, vector, 1536 column. C. A full text index on the embeddings, vector, 1536 column. D. A vector index on the embeddings, vector, 1536 column. Correct answer, D. A vector index on the embeddings, vector, 1536 column. Explanation. Vector indexes are specifically designed for similarity searches on embedding vectors. They significantly reduce retrieval latency and improve semantic search performance. Question 2. You have an Azure SQL database that contains database-level data definition language, DDL, triggers, including a trigger named DDL_audit. You need to prevent DDL_audit from firing during the next deployment. The trigger object must remain in place. Which transact SQL statement should you use? A. Disable trigger. B. Alter trigger. C. Alter database. D. Alter database audit specification. E. Alter server audit specification. Correct answer A. Disable trigger. Explanation. Disable trigger temporarily prevents a trigger from executing without deleting it. This allows deployments to proceed while preserving the trigger definition. Question 3. You need to recommend a solution that will resolve the ingestion pipeline failure issues. Which 2 actions should you recommend? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. A. Enable snapshot isolation on the database. B. Use a trigger to automatically rewrite malformed JSON. C. Add foreign key constraints on the table. D. Create a unique index on a hash of the payload. E. Add a check constraint that validates the JSON structure. Correct answer D and E. Explanation. A unique index prevents duplicate payload ingestion. A JSON validation check constraint ensures only properly structured JSON data is accepted. Question 4. You have a SQL database in Microsoft Fabric that contains a table named DBO, orders. DBO, orders has a clustered index, contains 3 years of data, and is partitioned by a column named order date by month. You need to remove all the rows for the oldest month. The solution must minimize the impact on other queries that access the data in DBO, orders. Solution: identify the partition scheme for the oldest month, and then run. Alter table DBO, orders drop partition scheme, partition_scheme_name. Does this meet the goal? A. Yes. B. No. Correct answer B. No. Explanation. Dropping a partition scheme is not the correct way to remove data from a specific partition. Partition switching or partition merging is typically used for efficient partition-level data removal. Question 5. You have an Azure SQL database that contains a column named Notes. A security review discovers that Notes contains sensitive data. You need to ensure that the data is protected so that neither the stored values nor the query inputs reveal information about the actual data. The solution must prevent a user from inferring relationships or repetitions in the data based on the encrypted output. Which should you use? A. Always encrypted with randomized encryption. B. Always encrypted with deterministic encryption. C. Always encrypted with secure enclaves. D. Row-level security RLS. Correct answer, A. Always encrypted with randomized encryption. Explanation. Randomized encryption produces different ciphertext for identical plaintext values. This prevents attackers from identifying patterns or repeated values. Question 6. You have an Azure SQL database that supports a customer-facing API. The API calls a stored procedure named DB-800 customer orders thousands of times per hour. After a deployment that updated indexes and statistics, users report that the API endpoint backed by DB-800 customer orders is slower. In Query Store, the same query now has two persisted execution plans. During the last hour, the newer plan had a significantly higher average duration and CPU time than the older plan. You need to restore the previous performance quickly, without changing the API code. Which transact SQL command should you run? A. exec sys.sp_query_store_set_hints. B. dbcc freeprocake. C. exec sp_query_store_force_plan. D. Alter database. Correct answer, C. exec sp_query_store_force_plan. Explanation. Query Store allows forcing a known good execution plan. This quickly restores performance without modifying application code. Question 7. Which tool helps orchestrate data pipelines for AI workflows? A. Azure DevOps. B. Azure Data Factory. C. Power BI. D. Azure Monitor. Correct answer, B. Azure Data Factory. Explanation. Azure Data Factory is designed for data integration and pipeline orchestration. It automates data movement and transformation for AI and analytics solutions. Question 8. What is the primary purpose of Azure AI in SQL development? A. Replace SQL Server. B. Automate infrastructure deployment. C. Enhance querying and analytics with AI capabilities. D. Eliminate the need for databases. Correct answer, C. Enhance querying and analytics with AI capabilities. Explanation. Azure AI adds intelligent features such as semantic search and natural language interactions. It helps users gain deeper insights from SQL data. Question 9. You need to recommend a solution for the transaction processing application that meets the security requirements. What should you include in the recommendation? A. A service principal. B. A system-assigned managed identity. C. A shared access key. D. A user-assigned managed identity. Correct answer, B. A system-assigned managed identity. Explanation. System-assigned managed identities eliminate the need to manage credentials manually. Azure automatically handles identity creation and lifecycle management. Question 10. You have a GitHub Actions workflow that builds and deploys an Azure SQL database. The schema is stored in a GitHub repository as an SDK-style SQL database project. Following a code review, you discover that you need to generate a report that shows whether the production schema has diverged from the model and source control. Which action should you add to the pipeline? A. SQL package.exe/action, drift report. B. SQL package.exe/action, deploy report. C. SQL package.exe/action, extract. D. SQL package.exe/action, script. Correct answer, A. SQL package.exe/action, drift report. Explanation. Drift report compares the deployed database with the source model. It identifies schema changes that occurred outside the deployment process. Question 11. Your development team uses Visual Studio Code with the MS SQL extension and GitHub Copilot chat. The team connects to an Azure SQL database by using individual database logins and uses the @MS SQL chat participant to generate and run transact SQL queries from prompts. What is used to ensure that GitHub Copilot chat-generated queries run in the context of the developer? A. SQL permissions. B. Azure RBC permissions. C. GitHub organization permissions. D. Shared MCP instruction files. Correct answer A. SQL permissions. Explanation. Generated queries execute using the developer's authenticated database account. The user's SQL permissions determine what operations can be performed. Question 12. You have an Azure container app named App1 Contoso 001 that hosts a Data API Builder (DB) container in front of an Azure SQL database. You add an entity named todo that uses a source named dbo.todos. Which URL pattern should clients use to access the todo REST endpoint? A. https://app1-contoso-001.azure-statecaps.net/data-api/graphql/todo. B. https://app1-contoso-001.azure-statecaps.net/api/todo. C. https://app1-contoso-001.azure-statecaps.net/data-api/todo. D. https://app1-contoso-001.azure-statecaps.net/data-api/api/todo. Correct answer B. https://app1-contoso-001.azure-statecaps.net/api/todo. Explanation. Data API Builder exposes REST entities using the /API route by default. Clients can access CRUD operations through this endpoint. Question 13. You have a GitHub Actions workflow that builds and deploys an Azure SQL database. The schema is stored in a GitHub repository as an SDK-style SQL database project. Following a code review, you discover that you need to generate a report that shows whether the production schema has diverged from the model and source control. Which action should you add to the pipeline? A. SQL package.exe/action, drift report. B. SQL package.exe/action, deploy report. C. SQL package.exe/action, extract. D. SQL package.exe/action, script. Correct answer A. SQL package.exe/action, drift report. Explanation. Drift reports highlight schema changes made directly in production. This helps maintain consistency with source-controlled database projects. Question 14. Which tool helps orchestrate data pipelines for AI workflows? A. Azure DevOps. B. Azure Data Factory. C. Power BI. D. Azure Monitor. Correct answer B. Azure Data Factory. Explanation. Azure Data Factory manages ETL and data movement processes. It is commonly used to prepare data for AI and analytics workloads. Question 15. You implement procedure documents to support the plan changes. When users consume data through the Retrieval Augmented Generation (RAG) pattern, they experience data retrieval delays. You need to improve the data retrieval performance and reduce the number of tokens per retrieval. What should you implement? A. Chunking. B. Embeddings. C. A small language model (SLM). D. JSON content. Correct answer A. Chunking. Explanation. Chunking breaks large documents into smaller, searchable sections. This improves retrieval speed and reduces token consumption. Question 16. You have a GitHub Enterprise subscription. Your team is developing an Azure SQL dataset solution from a locally cloned GitHub repository by using Visual Studio Code and GitHub Copilot Chat. A mix of GitHub Copilot instructions is configured at different levels, including organization-wide, repository-wide, agent-specific, and personal. Which instructions will take precedence over the others? A. Repository-wide. B. Personal. C. Organization-wide. D. Agent-specific. Correct answer B. Personal. Explanation. Personal instructions are the most specific and user-focused settings. They override broader organization or repository-level instructions. Question 17. What is a key benefit of embedding vectors in SQL databases? A. Faster backups. B. Improved indexing. C. Semantic search capability. D. Reduced storage. Correct answer C. Semantic search capability. Explanation. Vector embeddings capture the meaning of data rather than exact keywords. This enables powerful similarity and semantic search experiences. Question 18. What is the role of Azure Synapse in AI plus SQL solutions? A. Data warehousing and analytics. B. Authentication. C. DNS management. D. Email services. Correct answer A. Data warehousing and analytics. Explanation. Azure Synapse combines data integration, warehousing, and analytics. It provides a scalable platform for AI-ready data processing. Question 19. Which scenario best fits AI-enhanced SQL querying? A. Static reports. B. Manual backups. C. Chatbot querying database data. D. File compression. Correct answer C. Chatbot querying database data. Explanation. AI can convert natural language questions into SQL queries. This enables conversational access to database information. Question 20. Your team is developing an Azure SQL dataset solution from a locally cloned GitHub repository by using Visual Studio Code and GitHub Copilot Chat. You need to disable the GitHub Copilot repository level instructions for yourself without affecting other users. What should you do? A. From Visual Studio Code, modify your GitHub Copilot Chat user settings. B. Add a debug flag when you start the GitHub Copilot Chat extension. C. Delete .github/copilotinstructions.md. Correct answer A. From Visual Studio Code, modify your GitHub Copilot Chat user settings. Explanation. User settings allow developers to customize Copilot behavior locally. This change affects only the individual user and not the repository or team. Please revise full PDF 2 to 3 times for 100% success. Check the description for the PDF download link and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for upcoming episodes. Thank you.